All right. Good morning and welcome to the call, everybody. I'm super glad that you're here today. I'm going to talk a little bit this morning about demand avoidance. You know, for me, cue soapbox. This is really one of the most interesting diagnoses. And I'd almost kind of venture to say that more than a diagnosis, it's kind of a personality type. It's like really in the core of our beings and how we interact with the world when we experience demand avoidance. Um, Demand avoidance is a really interesting bag, honestly, because first of all, I just gotta state that to me, it's really a indicator of the society that we live in and the way things are when we need a diagnosis for people who will not be controlled. Hmm, interesting, right? It's a hallmark of a society that functions on control, right? It all stems from the big picture of society deciding that control is that's that's how we function in today's culture. So, and it's been that way for a long time. Generationally, most people have no idea how to achieve things or to get things done outside of control and power dynamics. Um, and then here we have demand avoidant people who they don't succumb to control, and therein lies the problem. Now, I do want to acknowledge that demand avoidance can be problematic for a person who fits this description or has this diagnosis or however we're gonna express that here. It can be problematic, like you know, one example of that would be like I'm so demand avoidant myself that like I'll start to feel like, oh, maybe I should, eat some food or drink some water because I've had a lot of coffee today. And then my mind does this little thing and it's like, excuse me, who do you think you are telling me what to do? If I want more coffee, I'll have some more coffee and get myself another cup of coffee. And then I'm having the spins and wishing I would have had some water or some food, right? And so there is that edge to demand avoidance, which is rather difficult for a person who is demand avoidant to navigate. Particularly if they're demand avoidant enough that if they're telling themselves what to do, they don't want to do it. And then suddenly this is leading to things like task paralysis and avoidance and all of these other things. So, having a set toolbox that helps us navigate through the things that we need to get done, the things that help our lives get by, that help us to function in society in the ways that we need to do in order to maintain our lives and our lifestyles, right? So we really do need, as demand avoidant folk really do need kind of a little set of toolboxes or ways that they can help navigate what's important to them so they can get the things done. Um, and as parents, like the job put forward to parents is to get your children to XYZ, all within this little box. behave, do the things, all of this other thing. And the way we're going about that, it circles back around to like control and demand and all of these things that are going to have a demand avoidant person stepping back. And in fact, um, demand avoidance is the reason I'm a gentle parent, because I didn't start my journey as a gentle parent. I just did the things that my parents did, which, they were pretty good with the like baby stages. So was I. Then when the kids got a little bit older, they were pretty not so great, and so was I. And it was when my second son, who is so demand avoidant, was reached that free will stage, that I realized that the harder I pushed, the harder he pushed back. And then it became a power struggle and a push and shove, and that's not something that I'm willing to engage in with my children, because it just gets more and more gruff when we get into a push and shove with a demand avoidant person. Because the more you double down on do it this way, the more they're going to double down on excuse me, no way. And as parents, that is really hard, because the task put forward to us, like, there's a lot of control in that. And some of, like, navigating life, we've got to forward our paths in life and get through our days and all of these other things. And like I was mentioning before, we don't really have much of a toolbox to do that without power and control. And when we're dealing with somebody who is demand avoidant, power and control, they go out the window. They just don't work. They turn into massive power struggles, heavy fighting, things that we really aren't in alignment with gentle parenting. They're not getting our children the tools that they need to navigate themselves and the lives that they're living, and any of the above, right? So how do we work with somebody who's demand avoidant? First, and it's like, it seems kind of common sense, and at the same time kind of a little bit difficult. It's like we have to stop trying to control them, right? um, and of course, because we don't have a big toolbox for not controlling, then we lean back on, well, then how do I do it? What am I supposed to do? How am I going to get through my day with this demand avoidant person if any amount of ask to do things or direction or any of these things are up on somebody's demand avoidance and causing them to push back? Um, so the far less simple and more nuanced answer to that would be, you know, first of all, getting to know our people, really understanding our people, leaning into who they are, what makes them feel all the different things, and what they're excited about, and what their values are, and all of these other things kind of helps us. And also communication style is really important too, because everybody has a slightly different way of communicating, but that can help us to know how to interact with somebody better in order to work through getting the things done that we have to do on a daily level. Um, Really, the first thing that a demand avoidant person needs to feel is they need to feel that they can have interactions with you that don't have ulterior motives. And when they're sensing ulterior motives, it actually goes towards like this overall feeling of like, well, what are you up to and what are you trying to pull? And like, not really feeling comfortable in a situation. And so, and also, when the connection is really strong, demand avoidant people are more likely to not feel that twinge of demand avoidance. It comes a lot like anxiety in the chest when you start to feel somebody is trying to tell you what to do or manipulate your actions into doing a specific thing. It comes with a really deep and intense feeling in your chest. Um, Connection is definitely one of the things that can help somebody to feel more honored. Um, but really, the goal in working with somebody who is anything, like no matter what their diagnoses are or aren't or who they are, the most important thing in working with anybody, and particularly true of people who feel demand avoidant, and I think part of it might actually have to tie into like value and all of that stuff, because the most important part really is helping them to feel like you genuinely care about them and their experiences, and that the the interactions that you're having with them aren't transactional, and there's not an ulterior motive on the other side, because when we feel those things we also feel like it diminishes our value as an individual human being when the ulterior motive was the reason for the interaction, if that kind of makes sense. So just letting go of the ideas that we need to control and starting to lean in more to the relationship, more to the connection, and not just adjusting our language so that we can get somebody to do the things that we want them to do, which a lot of like the mainstream gentle parenting stuff that I see like on Facebook and TikTok and all of that stuff, it really is that. It's adjust your language and change things around so that you can more subtly and more kindly manipulate somebody to meet your goals. And in parenting, when they're talking about, all of these different concepts, the underlying need is always to get somebody to do things. And um, if we let go of our investment in somebody else's performance and what somebody else is going to do and whether they're going to, achieve the thing that we put in front of them, when we let go of that, and we have a lot of fear of letting go of that because we think that that means that everything falls on us. But genuinely, when we let go of all of that, then we can see the reasons why. Because when we're looking from an angle, for example, I'm looking from this angle where I'm running late and I need to get to work today, or, kids need to get to school on time. And I'm looking in from this angle that's very me centered. And then, of course, because these are the tools that we've been given, the oldest pathway in our brain is to control. And so then when we're in that me centered space and we're feeling that outside pressure, we're going to be leaning more into the control, which is going to cause the demand avoidant person to push back. And suddenly we're having a power struggle that's getting us nowhere near the door. Um, but if we remove that perspective of the me perspective of we've really got to get to school, we're running late, and all of those other things, we can look at the underlying. Why are we struggling here this morning? There's a lot of reasons why we could be struggling here. And those are things that we can work with that don't make the demand avoidant person feel pushed around. For example, why are we struggling to get out of the door? Maybe we didn't get to sleep early enough and everybody's just dragging and they're really tired, and we just need a minute to like lean into, a couple minutes of snuggles, or, maybe a little bit more water, or maybe a shower, different things that could, wake us up because we're really dragging today and it's just really hard. Or like, maybe the kiddo was having a hard time with one of their friends at school yesterday and they haven't shared it with you yet, but they're not really sure they want to go today. And It's kind of getting in the way. But if we remove the we're hurrying because this is about me, and we look a little bit deeper, then there's issues that we can address that helps somebody to feel more comfortable and better. And the chances that that removes a blockade towards the door with a demand avoidant person is going to be far higher than getting edgy or more snappy or more pushy or any of the other things that we might do from the old control mindset that lead to power struggles. Just leaning in and saying, hey, are you struggling today? What you struggling with? Like, how can I help you with that thing you're struggling with? And not with the caveat or the further statement, how can I help you with the thing you're struggling with so we can get out the door? And that might be in our hearts on the other side of it, but really trying to let go of that energy when we're addressing the thing, that's what really allows the room for somebody to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel understood. Once we have those things, that creates the safety for us that we need in the world. And that also helps us and ourselves as adults and our children work through these processes where we're trying to figure out like what is going on with us today, what is wrong with me today, um, why am I feeling the way that I'm feeling? Is there something that I need? Is there something that could help me? A glass of orange juice, and suddenly everybody's smiling and heading for the door, without even needing a prompt, because like the pushing is causing the problem really big time in the scenario when we're talking about demand avoidance. And again, I just, before I get into the sharing portion of the call, because I know I've been talking for quite a minute here, like I said, it's one of those topics that gets me really excited, and I honestly don't feel like I've barely peeled the top off of it. I could probably talk about this for a couple of hours. But what I just and then I lose my train. I could talk about this for hours. Train of thought completely lost. Um, I just wanted to kind of, shine some light on this and talk about it a little bit, so that we can think about ways to help our demand avoidant people navigate life, and also so that we can navigate life a bit better ourselves, because a lot of times when our children have a certain personality type or personality trait, or all of this stuff, sometimes, oftentimes, we share that personality trait and we have similar life experiences that we're going through. And, it can just help us to navigate closer as a family if we can acknowledge that everybody has their individualistic journey, and we're all just looking to be more seen, more heard, more understood, more safety in our lives. And so much more flows out of that, regardless of our brain type, really. Like, that's for everyone. All right. So I will end the sharing portion of, or my talking portion of the call, and get to the sharing portion of the call. I'm super grateful that you're all here today. And as usual, if anybody wants to go first, last, in the middle, let me know in the way that feels most comfortable to you, and we'll go from there.